Can you hear me? Good afternoon. I was a kindergarten teacher, so I'm on the verge of doing my little clap for everyone, for you to have eyes on me, right? Good afternoon, and welcome to the third session entitled College Counseling Tools. My name is Cheryl Holcomb McCoy, and I am Professor of Counseling and Human Development at Johns Hopkins University. And as of July 1st, I became Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs there. So this is, I don't know if you're clapping for me because it's a congratulations or you feel sorry for me. And someone said, I didn't know faculty had affairs. Do they really do it? So I'm not into that kind of faculty affairs. Today is absolutely one of the most significant days in the history of school counseling. Not since the National Defense Act of 1958 and the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965 has school counseling as a profession received attention from those in higher education, from local school districts, state departments, and the federal government. Wow, this is historic. It's truly a wonderful day, and I want to thank publicly Greg Darniter, the First Lady staff, Mandy Savitz-Romer, who her tireless efforts putting this together, Harvard University College of Education or School of Education. You know, as Hopkins people, we want to kind of mess that up a little bit. And all the others that made this day possible, I just want to say thank you for having this opportunity to come together. As mentioned this morning and at lunch, most of the millions of jobs created over the next decade and beyond will require some type of post-secondary education. And we have the opportunity today to determine how we can ensure equitable access and opportunity for students from various socioeconomic backgrounds, linguistic backgrounds, ethnic and cultural backgrounds. We can help those students attain those jobs by placing school counselors at the forefront of the Reach Higher initiative. This session today is particularly important to our overall dialogue about moving this initiative forward because our topic today, college counseling tools, is directly related to the actual day-to-day practice of school counselors. While an in-person, knowledgeable counselor is clearly the preferred mode for every student, there is such a significant gap between the availability of such resources and what is currently needed for those students that I question whether it is even possible to scale that type of mode of action. Over the years, I have heard some well-meaning and highly effective school counselors across the country talk of their frustration about the large student caseloads that they have, particularly those counselors in high-need schools. With the large numbers of first-generation college students and families in some schools, it's literally impossible for counselors to be able to provide individualized, face-to-face counseling and guidance to all students who need it and deserve it on a regular basis. Did you know that fewer than 15% of high-need students receive the type of college counseling and personal guidance that allows them to get on a path to college success? I call this the counseling gap, and it's a daunting gap. In large school districts, we see a ratio of 700 students per counselor. And only 21% of public high schools have a dedicated college counseling position compared with 77% of private schools. These numbers highlight the crucial yet often overlooked need for more college counseling implementation by school counselors. Across the country, I've also talked to counselors who admit that they have opted to take the route of providing college preparation and admission support to students who, one, either request it, two, to students who are only in honors or AP courses, or three, to those students who have parents with the social and cultural capital to ensure that counselors provide the assistance needed. In these cases, counselors are committed to only supporting a small percentage of students with college counseling, and hence it perpetuates the opportunity gap. And then there's a third group of counselors who I've encountered across the country. And these counselors provide little college counseling because they aren't prepared to do so. And we heard a lot about that this morning. These counselors are unprepared to provide first-generation college students and their families with the resources and information that they need for college success. In all of these scenarios, there's a critical need for tools and resources that address the needs of these counselors across all of those groups. Most importantly, there is a persistent challenge related to reach. I call it the reach. How do school counselors reach hundreds of students equitably and in a culturally sensitive manner? In essence, we need tools that enhance college counseling practices of school counselors and expand their capacity to meet the unique needs of first-generation college students and their families. Counselors need tools that address academic preparation, college admissions, financial planning, and overall college success. We talked today in my small group about non-cognitive variables and how these are often predictors of student success and college success. We also need tools that are not costly. We need tools that are accessible to all students and counselors. We need engaging tools that allow counselors to relate and interact with students more frequently. And we need tools that are personalized to fit students' unique needs and aspirations. I'm excited today to hear our four panelists, Alice Ann Bailey, Keith Frome, Drew Scheberle, and also Sylvia Lopez, because they're going to describe their diverse tools that show promise for meeting the challenges of preparing students for college success. Today, it will be critical for us to explore how these tools that we hear about, particularly digital tools, how they can close the counseling gap. Digital technologies such as texting, video storytelling, web-based counselor professional development, counselor dashboards, and social media sites are all exciting and have the potential to cost-effectively reach hundreds and thousands of students who need the most personalized, up-to-date college information and guidance. Nevertheless, in many cases, we don't know how these tools can best make up for the lack of trained counselors, nor do we know how these tools interface with counselors and their effectiveness when utilized with or without the involvement of counselors. As we listen to our panelists this afternoon, I want to plant some seeds of thought. So I want you to think about these things as you listen to these panelists talk about the tools that they've developed. There are some aspects of promising tools that I personally think are important, and there are others that think so as well. For instance, the Get Schooled Foundation has a wonderful piece out on recommendations about tools and resources for college access. So these are my seeds of thought. Number one, we need tools that begin with the underserved students and families in mind first. We also need tools that are accessible and affordable for schools and school districts with the largest proportions of underserved students. Too often, college preparation tools and sites are not developed from the perspective of what a low-income student needs or can afford in order to successfully navigate the college application process. Number two, we need tools that keep counselors and counselor educators abreast of college information and college counseling strategies. Number three, I think we need tools that engage students in the college-going process, increasing students' social and cultural capital through tools such as social media is a promising way of engaging hard-to-reach students. Number four, I want you to think about tools for younger students. We talked a lot about how students need college help and college information starting in 6th grade. But what about elementary school too? Therefore, what do elementary and middle school counselors need in order to do their work more successfully? We also need tools that offer support and assistance for students throughout the college preparation process and then to college completion. Continuity is important. We need tools that guide students through the many milestones that they experience from middle school, even elementary school, to college completion. And number six, think about tools that have been rigorously researched for specific outcomes, effectiveness, scalability, and impact. A colleague of mine, I don't want to embarrass her, Kylie Holcomb, who's sitting out there now. We're not going to look at her, but I did embarrass her. Reminded me this week I was struggling with what I was going to say, and she gave me a really good statement, and I just want to repeat it. She said, if your only tool is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. And I thought her statement was pretty insightful and pretty wise. There are many outcomes and milestones in the college preparation process that need to be addressed, and each milestone requires different tools and resources, possibly even for different populations of students. So we are in need of many strategies and tools and resources as counselors, and we need tools that work. There's lots of work to be done. So let's get started with our session and our panel. And I'm going to introduce our first speaker is Keith Frome, the co-founder of College Summit and executive director of King's Center, then followed by Sylvia Lopez, Drew Scheberle, and Alisanne Bailey. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and I want to thank everyone for coming today and obviously for the work that you do day in and day out on behalf of all the kids here. I want to talk a little bit about something called the College Knowledge Challenge, which some of you have heard me talk about before, which is a Gates-funded challenge to ed tech companies and other programs to develop mobile and web-based apps to get kids to and through college. And I want to tell you a little bit about that and the results that we've gotten. But then I want to move to a bigger and a little bit more abstract idea about the emerging field of digital tools, of basically web-based and mobile apps. Because I was the lead of the College Knowledge Challenge, I have a privileged vantage point at this emerging field. And I'm going to make the argument that it's not really a field yet, but that it's almost like a constellation that's almost coming into being. We can actually watch it come into being. And that you as college counselors and college counselor advocates, you have an incredible opportunity right now to form this field, because this field should be here to serve you. So let me just tell you a little bit about the College Knowledge Challenge. Gates asked College Summit and the King's Center to challenge the country to build web-based and mobile apps to help low-income and first-generation kids get to and through college. Each of the winners was awarded $100,000 to build their app, and they had a very short time frame within which to build it. Let me just show you the slide that really inspired our work. Am I going backwards? Got it. Oh, it's in reverse now. So this slide, which I think is probably going to give you data that... Are you doing it for me, or am I doing it? Check. Okay. This slide was the data that was our passion. And it was put together by a group called Intentional Futures. And what it shows is the college graduation trajectory of high-income versus low-income students. And every year in America, there's about 608,000 high-income 8th graders. And there's about a little bit more than 1.1 million low-income 8th graders. 95% of the low-income 8th graders say they want to attend college. And what this graph shows you is their trajectory through high school and then through the completion of a 4-year college degree. And what we find is that 8th grade cohort, the high-income kids, about 83%, 82.4% actually graduate from college, and in the low-income cohort, only about 8.3% graduate. We only get about 100,000 from that cohort. This is the data that drives your work. This is the data that drives our work. And this was the data that was the passion that drove the work of the College Knowledge Challenge. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So what we wanted to do was figure out a way to solve what I call the nagging and nurturing problem. So every child who goes to college and gets through college has two things in his or her life. He has a nurturer and a nagger. But not every child has that in their lives. And so this is sort of the remarks that you were making. How do we provide an informed, competent, and caring nurturer and nagger to every kid in America? Well, there's 3 roadblocks to college. One is planning. You need strong college planning skills as well as strong career planning skills. You need good, accurate actionable, timely information on college selection, admissions, particularly financial aid requirements and processes, and how to use government data, how to transfer from college, say a 2-year college to a 4-year college, scholarship, graduate requirements. We know all that good information that needs to be delivered accurately and actionably. And then for us at College Summit, this is almost as important as the other two, or maybe more important. You need a college-going culture. You need the support not only of informed adults in your life, but of informed college-going peers in your life. So the question was, how can we provide that digitally to every kid in America? So we threw out this challenge, and we said, develop apps. We developed technology that can be used anywhere by anyone at any time to support students. And we had a number of criteria. The first is that the app had to be innovative. It had to develop an innovative response that we had not seen before in the digital realm that addressed specifically at least one of the 3 roadblocks, if not all 3. You had to develop an app that was speaking in a language, to your point, that was sensitive to the needs of first-generation students and low-income students. So there had to be a level of sensitive understanding. The third was that it had to be interactive. We did not want static information just on a digital page, but it had to be a user-friendly app that was both supportive and coaching, as well as delivering good information. It had to use social media and social engagement. Peer-to-peer, near peer-to-peer support was crucial. We know that in our work. We know that and you know that in your work, crucial to driving kids to college success. It had to be accessible, and by that we mean it had to be free or nearly free. If you were going to download it, it had to be free or at least not more than 99 cents or $1. And then it had to have a good planning component to it as well so that you could complete the app. We didn't just want to award the money and have people go off and work. We wanted to deliver these apps to the field in a very timely way, in a very quick way. So you had to have a good plan. So 180 companies and programs applied, and we chose 20 of them. And last October, we launched 19 of them, which was an incredible success rate and an incredible hit rate. And what we decided to do along the way, this was interesting, was not original part of our plan, but as these apps started to develop and they started to really address the 3 roadblocks to college access and success, we noticed that we could sequence those apps on a map of milestones that took you to and through college. The College Summit curriculum is based on what I call on a spine of milestones. There's 24 milestones that you have to achieve to get to college, and then about 6 more to get through college. So we sequence those on a map, and we put them on something we call the College App Map. It's available digitally right now on collegeappmap.org. But we also knew that we couldn't just sort of say that and have people go on it. I know as a school person, you need what I call a paper bridge to the digital realm. So I'm going to show you. So what we did is we created a paper map of this, which is sort of a poster-sized map, 11 by 14. And our good friends at the College Board agreed to distribute 500,000 of these paper maps to low-income high schools around the country. So those maps have been now distributed. We distributed 40,000 in Buffalo as well, but we distributed 500,000 to the rest of the country. And now they're also sequenced for everybody on collegeappmap.org. And you'll see that you can go to a step, and say you go to step 17, and it gives you a menu of apps that you can use to complete that step. One of the things that we learned in our research and in our work here is that if you just tell a child to use one app, a student, they will not like that. They want to choose their app. They want to shop around for their app. To sort of play off of your metaphor of faculty affairs, it's better in this realm to be promiscuous, not fidelitous. I know that in college counseling and counseling, we believe in fidelity to a program. In this realm, it's much better to give kids a choice because they're going to be trading on and off, and they're also going to like different interfaces as well. So you can't just have one interface for all kids. So we launched those we just launched those in October, and as of February 28th, which was actually the end of the grant period, we had, the aggregate of the apps had collected 772,493 unique visitors. That's as of February. We're still getting data in for this next period, but I think it's going to be close to 1 million unique visitors have gone to the aggregate of the apps. Now, what's happened is, since I've been the lead of this, is that I get requests now all the time from other app makers and other web-based digital tools. And what I'm learning is there's a lot out there. I'm sure you know there's a lot out there. And it occurred to me that we don't have a professional field of college access success apps, web-based and mobile apps. And so I was reflecting the other day, like, what constitutes a field? What constitutes the field of counseling or the field of philosophy or something like that? Well, there's several things that constitute a field. There's best practices and standards. There's a common definition of terms. There are common success metrics. There's a common definition of current challenges. There's pretty much agreed upon processes and procedures. There's a research literature. There are conferences and meetings of experts and practitioners. There's something I call the anxiety of influence. There's old folks who've done it before, and the new young Turks, the vanguard, who are going to do it differently. And then there's also the sort of history and lore. And this is true for any field, any kind of professional endeavor. What's interesting to think about college access success apps, which I think hold a lot of potential for solving the problem that we talked about, is to say it's an immature field, I think, is to give it too much credit. It's not a field. It's not a field, but that's a great opportunity for us. They're not best practices and standards. We don't really have common definition of terms. I can just go down this list, and the digital realm for college navigation apps, those things don't exist. But I can tell you some characteristics of the activity in this so-called field. And let me just say, you guys have an opportunity to make this a field, to make this, harness this, corral this activity to serve the purposes for your students. But let me just tell you some of the things that are going on in this sort of field of activity. There's something I call program tethering versus the viral dream. There's two camps in using these apps. One, tether it, literally tie it to the programs that they're implementing on the ground, and the apps are digital tools that supplement the programs. But there's another camp that has something called that I call the viral dream. The viral dream is you don't need programs, that these apps alone can actually drive student behavior and have profound impact on college enrollment and success rates. This is an emerging tension in the field. You have several adoption strategies for the apps. A lot of the apps are given peer-to-peer. So a peer discovers it, and they recommend it to another peer. Some of the apps are adult to student. So an adult in a program or in a school says, this is a great app, I'm going to recommend it to you. The student loves that app, and then they recommend it to their other peers. Then there are some apps, particularly the FAFSA apps, which are always going to be adult to student because they're really not that much fun. But they're very, very necessary, so the adult gets the student on it and keeps them on it. What I've noticed in the activity that comes my way is there's a lot of decentralization and quality confusion. People don't know what's good. People don't know what's bad. People don't know what's a front for a financial services company. People don't know what has a lot of research behind it, and they're searching for that kind of quality control. There are sustainability model questions. It was very important to us that the apps who won the College Knowledge Challenge had a sustainable business model. And you want them to have a sustainable business model if they're good because you want them to exist over time. She just told me I'm at time. I'm almost done. They're starting to become, and we're just new at this. I mean, the apps have been out for maybe less than a year, obviously. Interface design and functionality congestion among new apps that are coming onto the market. Things are starting to look alike and sort of model and reflect each other. There are, and you heard it today at lunch, I'm predicting you're going to see a lot of online counseling in live real time coming on in the next year. You're going to hear about it in the next 6 months to a year. The online counseling, real-time, person-to-student counseling component is going to come on. And then you're starting to see some really cool best practices, and this is what I want to end on. This is the day we launched the apps, the College Knowledge Challenge apps, which was in LA in October. There were representatives from the Los Angeles Unified School District in the audience because we did in LA. They immediately had an idea, and they immediately implemented that idea. And this idea was the fun. They called it a World Cafe. What they did is they got 19 College Summit peer leaders in their school. These were seniors. And they assigned one of the apps to each of the peer leaders, and then they invited all of the Los Angeles counselors to come and meet with the 19 kids And they went from table to table to table, and the students taught the counselors how to use the apps. Then the counselors went back to their schools. You see this sort of Tupperware thing. They went back to their schools, and then they taught all of their students how to do that. That was invented on the spot by Tommy Chang, who's the superintendent of innovation at Los Angeles Public Schools. And then we took that idea and we said, you know what, we're going to do these things around the country. We're going to call them apathons. We asked the Bezos Foundation to fund them, and they agreed. And we're going to be doing 10 apathons around the country next year. But what I loved about it was that I was not inventing the implementation. The implementation was being invented by inspired folks from the tools. And I think that is the paradigm going forward. If you can provide great tools, the field will create inspired implementation and then share it with everyone else. So thank you.
Thank you, Keith, and good afternoon to everybody. My name is Sylvia Lopez, and I'm the Director of Counseling Services for Dallas ISD. And I just want to say thank you. I'm just honored and privileged to be here and to be able to meet many of you and network with you and learn a lot of great ideas. But one thing I do want to say about my district is we're the second largest district in the state of Texas. We have about 157,000 students in approximately 230 schools, whereas 87% of our kids are in free and reduced lunch. However, with all of that said, we have at least 75% or more of our seniors on track to graduate, and we are continuing to build that number. I am responsible for approximately 385 school counselors, and part of that responsibility is having 50% of their evaluation. And that people kind of gasp going, what, do you evaluate all your counselors? Yes, we do. And that's the only way we'll know the work school counselors do on a campus if someone in the district office is actually monitoring the work they do on the campus. And the principal has 50% of their work. But one of our purpose for Dallas ISD that we will graduate college and career ready by 2020. And he's looking, when I say he, my superintendent, Mr. Miles, is saying 90% will enter college, military, or be ready for a career right after graduation. Those are his goals, and that's what he expects. So with that, we have increased in AP courses with kids completing or making it 3 or more. We have our graduation rate has increased. And he's also added 23 additional counselors for high schools to help them with the College Career Initiative. Besides all of that, he has funded SAT for all seniors in the fall, for all seniors to take SAT. So that should not be a barrier of a college entrance exam and can I afford it, that kind of stuff. So he's removed that barrier. The other barriers in spring of all juniors this year, in 2014-15, all juniors will take the ACT. So we're having ACT and SAT totally paid for our seniors, for our students. One of the things Mr. Miles says that I truly believe in, and he says, we can't take the same things and do better. We have to think differently and do different things better. So I took that at heart. And one of the things we do is how can we make our counselors more accountable for the students they serve. So we had a huge research project going on in our district called the CRIS Project. And it was with the Stanford University, Brown University, and the University of Chicago, who all contributed to this CRIS project. And they invited 5 large urban school districts, and we were one of the 5. And their whole strategy is to promote early warning signs to guide educators in school districts. And they were going to be proactive about helping students, especially those coming from the low social economic status. But one of the things that really meant a lot was the tri-level approach that they truly believe in. The tri-level being the individual student, the school district, and finally, the school level, and finally the district level. So with that in mind, we jumped on the chance of what we can do to impact those students on an individual basis, and as far as the school district, how can we impact all these counselors that I'm responsible for. So one of the things that we came up with, thanks to a lot of work that we've done with the National Office of School Counselor Advocacy, headed by Pat Martin, and that was the Own the Turf. And you hear Own the Turf quite a bit throughout. Well, we have in Dallas ISD Own the Turf College Career Conference. Here we actually have an entire conference day where we invite our university partners that meet once every month. All universities, colleges, and anybody in that local area of the Metroplex. We all get together, we meet once a month. As what do we need to do to help continue to serve, to bridge that gap? What we found out, our counselors came at so many different levels of learning. So we needed to start bridging that gap of what we needed to give our counselors in order to do a better job in assisting our students. So the University Crossroads is the group that we meet every month, has been a dynamic group in helping us put on this Own the Turf conference. And with very limited budget, it costs us zero amount to get this done. The other thing that we found out, and we've been talking about it all throughout, is the leadership quality. We also decided we've got to do something to our counselors. Our counselors kind of sit back and kind of wait to see action. We don't want them to sit back. We want them to be proactive. So we developed Leadership Academy where they come in and actually learn those leadership skills. We have book studies on leadership. We invite our university partners to come in and tell us some unique things our counselors need to know. And we meet once a month with our counselors on the Leadership Academy, and they come in and provide lunch, and then they talk to them about their university. And we invite them strategically. We don't invite them all at the same time. And then on top of that, we invite business leaders to come in and also teach another look at leadership that's not in education but in business. So then with that in mind, we also decided, or the district has purchased the funds to allow the College Access Program, which they have been a real asset to us in accomplishing those goals we needed. And they are capped vendors. We have several vendors that comes out and say, we want to work with your kids. They actually have to go through presentations in front of high school principals. The principals then have to select the vendor they would like for that person to work in their school. But the unique thing is that they work under the leadership of the school counselor, the lead counselor, because we're all working for the same goals. We've all got to be going in the same direction. So they do meet weekly with them, and they provide individual and group assistance with our families, and they really work on those kids, not so much the top 10%, but those other kids that are so hard to reach are the ones that we really deal with. And then we moved on to the constant communication. One of the things that we give our counselors at the beginning of school, and we pull all this data, is a little report card like you see up there. The little report card is an individual report card on each school, and it tells them, did you meet your goals in FAFSA? Did you meet your goals in the Applied Texas? Did you meet your goals in scholarship? Did you meet your goals in the SAT, ACT? And we give them the report card at the end of each year, which we're getting ready to produce for our September meeting. And from there, they work with their CAP partner, and they decide how they're going to strategically and intentionally plan for these activities to occur for the next school year. And then we look at those goals again. And there's an example of a high school that has actually gone way beyond what needs to happen to make sure we're hitting all kids. Then we have also what we call the dashboard, my data portal. And like I said, my department's limited in funds, so we have to work within our departments, and I have to collaborate with other departments, the IT department, the whatever department I need to get the work done for counselors. And this is one of the things they came up with. Here we can actually pull the kids by ethnicity, by gender, by all of those things that we need to pull from. And we can do this for Applied Texas too, so we can kind of keep up with where our kids are. Our counselors need to keep up where they are. And finally, the last thing I do want to show you is one that we developed this year. Oh, and it's missing. It's called the 80-20 log. And the 80-20 log is based on the ASCA model, that 80% of our time is direct services to students, and 20% of that time will be the system support, what manages your program. There it is. The 80-20 log is something that our counselors, it's an electronic log. On the back side, there's things that they do on a daily basis of what they do. And then on the back side, it's also calculating the percentages that they have spent in those areas. And if you can tell, this is a high school, so you can tell what's going to be more dominant is the individual student planning. But if you looked at an elementary log, you're going to see that guidance curriculum may be heavier than individual student planning. So we can actually track exactly what the counselors are doing on a daily basis. And there's going to be a new phase coming in for next year that we're really looking forward to integrating now direct services. What are those direct services and what does that look like? So that's a new phase coming in for next year. So we're pretty proud. All our counselors received what we call the Surface Pro, and every counselor received, because we're saying there's not going to be excuse for not knowing technology. So that's where we are. Thank you.
So I'm Drew Scheberle. I'm at the Austin Chamber of Commerce, which means I don't know what counseling, I don't know how to educate kids. I'm not a superintendent. I represent the business community. And about 12 years ago, worked with folks all over the country, and Cheryl was one of them. I heard a couple of states mention the Scholars Program, which is having students, especially in the middle 50%, take the courses you thought they were already taking. And I think it's a kind of beginning platform to this discussion. When I started work with the Austin Chamber, Austin had gone through a brutal recession. And we had lost tens of thousands of jobs in the early 2000s. The semiconductor community, industry had imploded. We'd lost billions of dollars in payroll. And the community really had thought, well, all these jobs were coming to us because we're pretty. And we realized that we didn't have a plan. We didn't have a plan, and we were overly focused in one industry. And when it went belly up, and we outsourced tens of thousands of jobs, we didn't really have a plan. And so as we looked at what kinds of jobs we wanted to attract to Central Texas, we saw that almost all of those jobs required at least an associate education. So we're a regional 5-county chamber. This represents roughly around 200,000 students in Central Texas. To give you a sense of our end, we really focus on the 16,500 seniors that are in the class of 2014. And we have worked with our partner chambers throughout Central Texas or Metro Austin to help have a conversation. And Cheryl and I were talking beforehand about kind of my theory of change. And I think in looking at sustained systemic development, it's sort of like squeezing an underinflated balloon. So you kind of squeeze it and out kind of pops some things, is that we really wanted to take the approach of trying to get our hands around all of this underinflated balloon so you didn't have things kind of pop out here and there. So we tried to take a little bit of a policy approach, tried to take some politics approach, tried to take some programmatic approach. And so as we were creating and raising the fund for Opportunity Austin, our economic diversification plan, we put in there about $2 million annually to be spent on improving this direct college enrollment rate. We found that only about half of our students were directly enrolling in higher education, and 2/3 of our jobs were requiring at least an associate's degree. So as we looked at a couple of things, Austin really exists today because of the University of Texas and Dell, right? So Dell didn't get rich by making the best computer. He got rich because he was able to customize a computer faster and cheaper than anywhere else. It was basically business process management. And if you look at the professional business class in Austin, These are largely people who look at the kind of things you're talking about, Keith, these sort of pipeline issues, figure out how to sync metrics into them, and figure out how to drive performance in those areas. So we came to the startlingly obvious conclusions that students were not likely to go to college if they didn't apply. Students were not likely to go to college if they didn't think they could afford it, and to know whether they could afford it, they needed to fill out the FAFSA. Students were not likely to graduate from college if they weren't academically ready to do college-level work when they entered. And so what we've been trying to drive across 15 school districts, across a change in every single one of our school districts at the superintendent level, probably an 80-90% turnover in trustees, a nearly 80-90% turnover in our legislature, is a continued focus on making sure that students completed these three things, and then finally they had to go. They had to actually enroll in higher education. So we've seen some successes. We worked with our area institutions to make them give up their local application and only use what we call the Texas Common Application or the Apply Texas. And that way we could track in individual real-time ways, pushing it down to the counselor, whether Drew had filled out his application today. What about today? And amazing counselors like Yvonne Ovalle would run down their students in the hallway. And you know Yvonne, right? All of you have an Yvonne out there who runs down their students, and 100% of their students apply for college. This gave them the toolbox to do it in real time. We created several dozen financial aid Saturdays. These were basically just events where you came and filled out your financial aid form like the First Lady did with students. So we helped several thousand students in the spring fill out their financial aid forms. We spend probably about $100,000 on radio ads in English and Spanish, on a web platform, on an app, on a widget, on internet advertising, on Facebook, all driven around Q1 FAFSA submission. And we've increased our FAFSA submission by 100% since we started in 2006. And then we invested about $500,000 a year into tutoring students who were going to graduate from high school but were not yet college ready. So those numbers regionally went from about 38% to today about 60%. So if you look at not just the college readiness numbers, but also if you look at the increased graduation rate at the same time, AISD, who's basically had a flat enrollment since 2008, has increased the number of students graduating ready to do college work by 1,000 kids. And that's about 4,400 students graduating. So that's a big deal. The vexing thing for us is that we saw this run up between 2002 and 2008. It improved by about 52% direct college enrollment up to 62% direct college enrollment. And then the economy went to hell. You may have heard of this. And we saw this flatten out. And we have not been able to budge this needle since 2008. So we've seen at the same time a 30% increase in our low-income population that are graduating from high school, which is great, right? It also means more challenges. We've seen we have seen an increase in the direct college enrollment rate from our low-income students, but we have not been able to budge this direct college enrollment rate since 2008. And when we started this whole effort, we got all of our superintendents together, we'd gotten all of our key people together, and we said, we need more college, right? And they said, what do you want us to do? We said, well, we'll have to get back to you. And we went down to the counselor level and we looked at what these tools would be that we could help get more information to counselors about what we needed them to do, and then to managers about what they needed to do. Now, we survey at the end of the senior year, and we have since 2006, all of high school graduates. So we get about 85% of those students, and we ask them about 100 different questions. Things like, what do you want to study? Who did you value for information? Did you go to a college campus? Did you study? Did you work? How much did you work? A huge amount of information. And then we followed those students 5 years into post-secondary, and we followed them into the labor market for 5 years. And we came up with a huge amount of information, but one of the things we found was that basically 90% of kids have wanted to go to college at the very end of their high school year, and yet only about, that 61, 62% were enrolling in the fall. So Laura Owen and Lindsay and others worked with us on this, in trying to drill metrics down, trying to drill texting down, putting more tools into the hands of counselors. And we went with about 7,000 out of those 16,500 seniors last summer and worked with them to increase the college enrollment and just case manage, and for undocumented students to help them with all sorts of verifications that they needed to do over and above. And so we found that the direct college enrollment rate was increasing. We found that we were integrating more data into this, but we also found that for that class of 2013, for those low-income students, we increased direct college enrollment by about 20% in that 1 year. So our theory of action as we wrap up is to continue to data mine what this, it's called a logic regression analysis that we did of the key variables that we weren't yet hitting, and we're incorporating those this fall into the counseling effort for students through this portal that we've been working on. And then we also have to unpack the fact that we have roughly about 40,000 people that are unemployed and about 40,000 job openings. And of those 40,000 that are unemployed, roughly 85% of those have less than an associate's degree, and roughly 2/3 of the jobs require an associate degree or a bachelor's degree, and unpack those. So we've been putting a lot more information in the hands of counselors, and we're going to try an intervention this October and then again in this January, where we message through social media and link it into the database of the school district so that a student can hear about the job opportunities and take an action right then to enroll in a computer science class. But I think, as we look at this kind of college opportunity agenda, I think my main takeaway is that the role of the federal government in this is that you all are the only ones who have control over this FAFSA data. And you've made incredible strides in pre-populating the FAFSA form from the IRS form, although it's still 10 long days from populating it. You can do real-time data. You can push this data out in a real-time way. You can vastly simplify the form or even push out positive verification of this. You can help accelerate the direct college enrollment data, because imagine being evaluated today on class of 2012 data. That undermines it. And then finally, pushing for an integration in this Texas Common Application with the National Common Application and things like the Academic Competitiveness Grant for Pell. So those are my kind of quick thoughts on this, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
I'm Alice Ann Bailey with the Southern Regional Education Board, and if I could have paid, I think I would have paid Trish to come up and present for me, or at least just like capture some of her energy. But I'm gonna try to be as energetic as Trish is. I definitely have the passion. It may not come across as energetic as she does, but I definitely have the passion for college access for students who would be first in their family to go to college. The Southern Regional Education Board is one of the 4 regional compacts across the country. We were the first, and we are definitely the largest. We were founded in the 1940s by a group of governors at a National Governors Association meeting. And they got together, and at the time, they said, why is the South always last on all measures of educational attainment? And I'm happy to say that we no longer are on many, many measures, and we've worked very hard on this over the years. SREB helps states do together and accomplish together what they cannot do by working by themselves. So this is where you heard Brandy from Michigan, and you heard Melissa from Utah talk about the counselor training program this morning. This is where we really think there's a lot of benefit in working together, because the training program that we originally developed was outrageously expensive. It cost somewhere in the neighborhood of about $400,000 to develop the first set of modules. But by sharing the costs and having each state pay into the pot just a little bit, it really changes the game for doing this. Go Alliance is one of the programs at SREB, and while the SREB, our focus is really on research and policy making for policymakers so that they can make informed decisions. Go Alliance is a college access program, and our whole purpose is to help students who would be first in their family plan and apply to college. We focus on policy, we focus on research and best practices. You might have heard some people talk about College Application Week today. That was one program that started in North Carolina, fabulous program. I saw how well it was working there, and so we were able to help grow that across state lines, to help spread it to into Georgia, into South Carolina, into Tennessee, into West Virginia, until it became a regional program and now has taken off at the national level. That's one of the things that Go Alliance does. We do direct support programs for students because, as everyone has said today, you know, students have big, big dreams, but they really can't accomplish that without a hand to hold along the way. And then we also do communication and marketing. We really believe that it's important to get students the information that they need so that they can make informed decisions about their post-secondary plans, but also to help give them the message that, yes, college is possible, you can go. So we do a lot of outreach and marketing as well. And as everyone has talked about today, we know that students have very big dreams for their future. We've heard statistic after statistic today saying how much students want to go to college. And if given the chance, they would. So we actually had a grant from the Lumina Foundation about a year and a half ago. We conducted focus groups of students all across the country. And we went about this backwards. We wanted to develop a technology tool to help them get into college. And so instead of us designing what we thought they needed to have, we went across the country into 8 locations and did focus groups with very low-income students. And they told us they absolutely all want to go. But as you know, they didn't know how. They think it's just some magical process. Someone comes and knocks on your door and pack your bags and let's go to college. And they said to us, you know, we kind of know the overall steps of what it takes to get there, but we don't know how. We need help with the how. I know I have to apply, but what does that mean? And what they told us they were doing was basically a Google search of an institution that they had heard of in some way, and were Googling that institution and then going to that webpage, how to apply. And that was the extent of their whole planning and application process for the most part. So we just asked them in these focus groups, talk about college in general. What does that mean? Well, they told us it's life-changing. It's transformative. I'll be exposed to new ideas and new people. I mean, they get it. We don't have to spend time on that. What we have to spend time with them is the how we're going to help them achieve those dreams. So we asked them what barriers stand in your way. And for them, it was mostly all financial, financial and academic. I can't afford it, a lot of misinformation about how much it costs to go, very little information about the FAFSA, the Pell Grant, and state scholarships and things like that. So we said to them, well, how can we help? They said, I want a tool that will help me complete the FAFSA. They were completing the FAFSA, and this is every student in all our focus groups. They were completing the FAFSA by themselves without any help from an adult in their life. Can you imagine? I mean, it's hard enough for us. So these are things that we already know. But they said, I want help completing the FAFSA. I want one-on-one help when I need it. And I want immediate answers to specific questions. So if you're thinking about technology tools, that was what our research came up with, what they were really asking for. So students want to go, they just really don't have the information or support that they need in getting there. And this, as everyone has mentioned today, is a big disparity between our high-income and our low-income students. So things we already know. So because of that, we started the College and Career Counseling Training Initiative. It started in a group of southern states. But, you know, in the South, we're very friendly, and we like to say all y'all. So it wasn't just some of us. We said, all y'all, come on. So we have some non-SREB states as well that we are very happy and fortunate enough to work with. And this is what I want to tell you in terms of lessons learned in trying to roll out a technology tool on this scale. We developed it with a lot of flexibility in mind because we knew we'd be working with many different states that have different agendas and different needs for what they wanted to accomplish. And even within those states, people would be using this in several different ways. So, I came into this from a background of college access, and I've drank the Kool-Aid to all my counseling friends here for school counseling. I, like Brandy mentioned, was very shocked to find how little training has going on, both at the master's level and for PD, for counselors. So we decided to form this. And I have a background in industrial and organizational psychology. Before I came to SREB, I worked at IBM developing employee training programs and national IT certification programs. And I said, I can do this. I think I've done this before. I think I know how to do this. So the College and Career Counseling Training Initiative was formed. But just in general, I would say if you're working, with multiple approaches, the first thing is to have a lot of flexibility in mind. So we developed this as just content. And I really depend on those who are using the content to use it in the ways that they see fit. So multiple audiences, I think, is really key in developing something like this. We developed this so it can be used by counseling professors as part of a master's degree in school counseling, but it can also be used as professional development training. It can be taught online. It can also be taught in a hybrid or a face-to-face approach. So the flexibility is definitely key. Now, the online approach, when we first developed this, it was really with an online approach in mind, to have as greatest reach as possible to counselors. And so many of our districts are very rural. They might only have one counselor in a district. So we decided that we really needed to have different ways of doing this to meet counselors in different formats. So by doing it online, we were able to connect them over large distances. And we weren't really sure how well this was going to go. I heard a lot of, counselors don't really know how to use technology. They might not have access. And I can tell you it's gone very, very well. So a few things to keep in mind. Counselors, we always evaluate, as everybody knows. We have evaluated this every step along the way constantly. We're constantly changing and improving our approach. We just recently did a survey of those who had enrolled in the course, not just those who had completed it, but those who had enrolled. And we found out that 64% said that online was their primary choice for professional development, as compared to hybrid or face-to-face. So counselors, we feel like, are very comfortable with this approach. And we asked them what was their favorite thing they liked about the training, and they told us it was that online discussion forum. They got into some very, very rich discussions. But if you're thinking about doing something like this, I would say we train our instructors, and we feel that's a really critical part of this. This is not a sit-and-get approach. This is something that is led by an instructor. And so you need to select them carefully so that they're able to teach online and to reach out and engage their students. And that's been a big finding in our evaluation, is that it really depends on who that online instructor is and how good they are at reaching out and engaging. But when that happens and it works beautifully, the counselors love the online discussion. So just very quickly, here's a little bit about what's in the training and the content, the things that our content experts have identified as being important. We have 4 modules right now, focusing on advocacy, cultural competency, using data, all of the things that you would expect. Financial aid is a really, really key one, as a lot of research has found. That seems to be one of the biggest barriers for students. And then we've developed one specifically for middle grades counselors. And then just to wrap up, we are working with an external evaluator, as I mentioned along the way. And I think, undertaking anything like this, that is really the most critical piece. And we find that this is a self-report approach. This was a 2014 study of all enrollees, not just those who completed, but all enrollees. And the findings, I think, were very good. We were very pleased with that. But the things that we're hearing that we need to address as a community, the counselors told us this is great training, we love it, but we need more time in our day to implement what we've learned, and we need greater support from our administrators to be able to do this and to actually change our practice. So.
Another round of applause. This was great. Thanks, Alice, Drew, Keith, and Sylvia. The information you shared is really, really helpful, and I'm sure it will add to our discussions and our breakout sessions. It's time for us now to go back to our breakout groups and discuss what you've heard, and the facilitators will have a list of questions for you to also use as a springboard for more discussion. Thank you. I'll see you back here in an hour. All right.